Oh, okay.
We'll see if it works. Yeah, we're going to go live.
We're going to go live.
And,
YouTube.
We are live on YouTube.
We are live on YouTube. Hi, this is Al
As far
Parada.
as I can tell.
As far as you can tell that it's me.
That's right. We are going live on Facebook. We are live on Facebook.
Oh, great. So we are live.
Are we live on OnlyFans, though? Because that's where most of my fan base is.
No.
Yeah.
Too many images. Hi, I'm Al Parada, managing editor of The Stream and the chief barista for The Brew, for those of you who get our Eat Daily morning email. I'm with Tom Gilson, senior editor with The Stream, Gail McQuarrie, who is our sassy social media coordinator extraordinaire, Bunny Pounds, who is the creator, but also the of Christians Engaged, which is doing amazing stuff in a short time already, and getting Christians engaged, which is funny because that's the title of the organization.
Hence the name.
Right.
And also with us is John Zamirak, who, as fans of The Stream and Eric Metaxas' show, know is very, very shy. So please help him along and cheer him on as we go into this election night. So, folks, we've seen some results come in since we last talked. Gail, you want to tell us about some of the things that are going on in terms of wins, losses?
So far, let's see. We have Scott in South Carolina, Tim Scott, who it's been called for. Right now, it looks like Greg Abbott in Texas is going to hold his seat as governor over Beto O'Rourke.
Cougars across America are crying into their Chardonnay.
Three-time loser. Yeah, Beto O'Rourke.
Next, he plans to run for Pope and lose.
Yeah.
Although he could hardly do any worse than the guy who's in there now.
Yeah. So, Bunny, you're speaking of Abbott. You're special. One of your specialties is Texas. Tell us what's going on there. What's that about?
I think, again, Beto underestimated the power of the conservative voter in Texas. I mean, we were thinking back a couple months ago that it might be a six-point race. It's probably going to end up to be a 10-point race for Abbott, which is a blowout, really. Now, Dan Patrick, our lieutenant governor, and our attorney general, Ken Paxton, are a little bit closer. They haven't called those races. It's still going to be 5 points or above. So statewide, we're good in Texas.
Paxton, I think Paxton is the most important race because he fought all those legal cases for the 2020 election.
Yeah.
He defended our elections from being turned into Georgia. Texas would have turned into Georgia if it hadn't been for Ken Paxton. So I'm very happy to hear we'll have him again.
Yeah, Ken's going to win, I'm sure. We've been watching the 3 congressional races of the 3 Latina women down in South Texas. It looks like Monica de la Cruz is going to win. They should be calling her race any minute. That's a new congressional district. We got 2 new congressional districts in Texas. One of them went to a more Republican-leaning district. And then we had one in Dallas-Fort Worth that's more Democratic-leaning. So we expected Monica to win that one. The other 2 is Myra Flores, who, of course, won in a special election. That's not trending in her direction. I'm not very confident she's going to pull that out. And Cassie Garcia was a former Ted Cruz staffer that was running against Congressman Henry Cesar down in Texas 28. So that's not trending her direction either. So it probably is just going to be the more safe Republican win, unfortunately.
Well, that's a shame because Maya Flores has a bright future, I think. We're going to have to find her a better district to run in.
Yeah, it's not over, but yeah, that's kind of where it's looking right now.
So Also, was it Missouri? Just heard that Missouri, Schmidt won. Republican Schmidt has won in Missouri. One thing we've noticed is that, Kemp in Georgia, he won. He's being projected as the winner over Stacey Abrams.
Woohoo!
It's interesting to see if she concedes, how she concedes, and who lets her who lets her concede.
Or will she set up a government in exile?
Or go back to writing romance novels. Got lucrative world there, good stuff there, and be president of the Federation of Planets or something from Star Trek.
I think she also had a previous career as the Michelin Tire Man.
Oh no! Boo, boo.
Yes, I went there.
That's
But hey, but one thing is you're seeing is that the governors that resisted the lockdowns, they killed it. They've done really, really, really well, which shows that they were right, and the people who said that they were ruining their states and ruining their election chances were wrong.
Remember the mass death they predicted in Florida? They were calling DeSantis a mass murderer in the pages of the Atlantic Monthly.
Yeah.
The same magazine that's now asking for an amnesty, a COVID amnesty. Yeah, you know who really wanted an amnesty in 1945? Goering, Himmler, Mussolini.
One thing it's interesting, and they're all trying to spin Florida on both NBC. Two different. One said GOP's dominance in Florida is all about gerrymandering. So Florida only did well because of gerrymandering. And then, of course, Joy Reid says it's a far, far, far right state. It has been trending that way for a while. When I said just 4 years ago, DeSantis won barely.
Barely beat the crackhead, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if the crackhead had won, if that guy had been in charge of Florida during COVID? They would have been forcing not the vaccine, but crack on everyone in the state.
Yeah, there was.
So it'd be Washington State or California.
Yeah. But another comment about Florida was that the loss there is catastrophic because of the Hispanic vote. The Obama coalition in Florida is gone. I mean, no mojo at all for Obama. He's kind of over. What do you think?
All those campaign appearances Obama made, it was like having Nickelback play at your amusement park. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yep.
So you go there. You go.
And Dade County did not vote for the Democrat. You would think they would have. I think
that's actually something pretty telling of it's going to be very interesting to see overall how the numbers turned out of, you mentioned earlier, Al, of black voters, but seeing the turnout of black and Hispanic voters, because with immigration being an issue too, seeing what that really does to cities that have been affected by people coming across the border, and they've had firsthand experience.
It's really facile to assume that Hispanic voters want more immigration. I mean, after all, these are the people whose couches their wife's cousins are going to be sleeping on if they come. These people are directly impacted, personally impacted, and they don't necessarily want to see everybody else get in. You know, they maybe they came in the illegal way, and they don't necessarily want to see thousands of people come in illegally. They don't want to see their new country turned into their old country.
Yeah, I always one thing I wondered about is where I used to live in California. There was a Home Depot, and at the Home Depot in the parking lot there was a structure, and within that structure were workers who had been certified to be able to work in the U.S.
Oh,
you know, so they were immigrants, but legal immigrants.
Or something.
Not underneath this structure were people who also wanted to be day laborers, but weren't legally certified to be able to work in this country. what did it feel like to be somebody under the sitting under the thing, watching somebody it was illegal, get in the truck to earn that day's wages on some construction site somewhere. Then what happens when that guy goes home and his son understands that the guy who did it illegally is getting paid, but his dad who came in legally. What does it do to this kid? Why would you obey why at that point would you not be tempted into the gang life or criminal life when that's who is benefiting from the system? So it's one of those little things that just always gnawed at me.
Interesting story.
And I'm sorry I didn't have it in the book, which still makes a wonderful Christmas gift. Politically, yeah, I did that. Make it in the book. Always nagging me.
The Democrats have not even tried to explain why they left the border unguarded for the last 2 years. They have not even offered a rationale for it. They just did it and then pretended they didn't do it and denied that it was happening. They have not offered any rationale for that. That's kind of amazing to me.
It's like it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, Kamala Harris kind of went there, but without going there. But,
that's just insane. So there was interesting little story. Again, I like the little fun stories about giving comedy, but there was some story that like Nancy Pelosi's like planning to be out of the country tomorrow, that she's heading off to Egypt. Doesn't want to be anywhere near the carnage, I guess. Or when people told her to pound sand, she took them literally. I'm not really sure. So
lots of sand there. Yeah.
Lots of sand. Also, there's some story that Biden took out anger about the midterms on staffers. Oh, here's the headline: Enraged Biden took out midterm anger on staffer. Of course, I thought that the staffer was,
Corn pop.
Corn.
Thought it was corn pop.
Thought it was corn pop. So that's something.
I got the curly hair on my legs, and it curls under the water. And the voters are, huh?
So,
Daddy, make it stop.
So interesting. What are you seeing? So you're saying, like in Texas, you're saying you're not seeing as much down at the border, as much of a huge wave as you were thinking?
Right, not as a huge wave as we were thinking, but battle. I mean, but it's going to be really interesting to see the final numbers, because if we push some of those like 10 points, and they were likely, overwhelming Democrat districts. It just depends on how big those changes were. I think a real interesting thing, I would love to hear y'all's opinion on Kemp. Looks like governor, that he's going to, they already called that, right, against Stacey Abrams in Georgia. But the difference between him as a candidate and Herschel Walker, I mean, it's like an 8 or 10 point difference there with the Republican base. I'm sure John's got comments on that.
Wait, who's doing better, Walker or Kemp?
Kemp's doing much better.
He could win straight out.
Much better, which I think shows, again, you've got a certain amount of people that are going to base their vote on what they consider leaders and personalities. And you've got to keep those independent voters and those people always in your mind when you're recruiting candidates or putting up people to run. We just can't put up people because they're popular or they have a TV show. Oz is a weak candidate too. We've got some of our weakest candidates in 2 of our most important states.
Bear in mind,
as far as
the difference. Who Kemp was running against too. So that's part of that points.
Yeah.
I don't know. Warlock's a pretty wacky candidate as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, visiting with the Castro, pro-abortion minister. I mean, that's pretty grotesque. Of course, we found an almost equally grotesque candidate to oppose him, just like in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we have this rhino, weird Turkish doctor running against a zombie.
Muslim.
Muslim doctor who supported transgenderism 10 years before anybody else on TV. So, frankly, if Republicans gain control of the Senate and Fetterman wins, to me, that would be my favorite outcome because it would be fun to watch Fetterman for the next 6 years interact with the public and try to speak. I think that'll be fun in a grotesque.
Try to make legislation happen. Yeah.
I want a Fetterman filibuster. I want 24 hours of Fetterman speaking. I think it'll kind of be like improvisational jazz.
Yeah. Or they're
It's
just having
been
to
definitely the most entertaining race in the country during this.
yeah.
It has.
Or they'll just put them next to sound lucid. So
It was
flip
a
alert looks like I guess CNN is calling Jennifer Higgins defeating Elaine Luria in Virginia's 2nd congressional district. That was a seat won by Biden by 2 years ago, and so that's a flip. Another flip across the river in Virginia. Yeah, so Virginia's moving a little red.
I saw somebody call Vance for Ohio for Senate, but no, I'm seeing others that haven't made that call yet. But
that is a pretty big lead. That's very, very encouraging.
That would be a seat retained,
but also an exciting new person in U.S. politics.
Yeah, and my goodness, reading his book Hillbilly Elegy was fun for me to read because he was writing about Middletown, Ohio, which is well, I live in Centerville, Ohio, and there's kind of in my mind this competition, which one's really in the middle, Middletown or Centerville? We're very close to each other physically, so it could be either one. And he actually made that joke in the book too. That's stomping grounds, and it is. I suppose there's a lot of places that would say so, but we have been considered ground zero here for the opioid epidemic. It's kind of rough here, and Vance got it, and that's what made him an interesting candidate to me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because Bunny's saying you got to find people who are really good leaders who aren't celebrities, but it's also great to find people who aren't politicians or not lawyers, or they don't trade as lawyers or have been dreaming about being in Congress since they were 5 years old. People who have real practical lived-in experience. And I guess, would you call it a science or an art form to find candidates, Bunny?
It is not a science, but it is art form. I did candidate recruitment for the Texas Republican Party in 2018 before I started Christians Engaged, and it's really hard. You have to find the person that fits the district. You have to find person that has the leadership ability. You can't just hire people just because they think that they can run for something, right? Mm-hmm. A perfect example of a great leader is one that just won re-election, Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt, who had a really challenging race, actually, because, he's a leader. So you got to, and he never had run for office before, and he ran, 4 years ago and won. That was a big, big upset race. And so I think we can hire people that have never had government experience before, but they've got to be already in the industry. They can't be just famous, right? Like Herschel Walker or Oz.
Or you could just have acting auditions, and hire AOC. Literally, that's how they found AOC. They had auditions. It was a casting call. And she showed up with 100 other people.
Wow.
And she was chosen by the director to play the congressman.
Imagine people who didn't even get a call back.
That's right. That would be... All right, don't be bitter, Russ. We know Rusty tried out for that, and it's a shame.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, there was somebody else who might have been an acting term is if they're picking you, when they come down to it, they might have two people, and they say they're pinned. So they kind of call your agent and say, we're very seriously considering, please hold the dates open, blah, blah. So there's probably somebody pinned with AOC who didn't get the gig. And you got to wonder what that person's up to today.
By the way, for those who don't know, we're talking about Al's wife, Rusty, who
is a Hispanic congresswoman from the Bronx. No.
Yes. You can play one, though. She has, I think in West Side Story, she ended up playing the Hispanic role when somebody got hurt or got sick or something. So, but yeah, character actress.
That is deeply implausible.
What Bunny was saying about leadership, though, I mean, one of the things that happens when you lead is that you make things happen, and if you make things happen, you make people unhappy, you make enemies, you take shots, you take hits, you get you've got a target on your back. There is no bigger example of that in our lifetimes than Donald Trump. And he is the epitome of that. But if you're going to be in politics and do anything at all other than be a famous person, you have probably got to have that experience under your belt. Mm-hmm. That leadership is not all that it's made out to be. It's not all it's cracked up to be. That it is an unfriendly place to be, and yet we need people who will do that and lead and serve.
Yeah, and have the.
I just noticed the thing. Wisconsin is really alarming. It looks like Mandela Barnes might pull it out over Ron Johnson.
Oh, really?
Bunny, do you know about this?
I've been watching that tonight. It's kind of scary there.
How many people you think believe they were voting for Nelson Mandela?
It's shocking. We had a guy here in Texas that won, and he's a good man. He's actually won re-election several times now, but his name is Scott Walker, that ran for the Court of Appeals. And literally he spent no money in that first race in a primary and beat, someone that had a whole bunch of experience. So absolutely, names like that are problems on ballots.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hate that. That's why Christians need to research their ballot and actually spend 30 minutes researching their ballot and go in more prepared than everybody else. It's our responsibility, church, to actually do the thing right.
There was a write-in. There was a race for judge here in Dallas where it's all write-in. So you just have to pick a name. Thankfully, I get emails from the True Texas Project, and they had recommended somebody, and so I knew who to write in.
Earl Jackson, yeah. I'll have to check to see how he's doing.
Wow.
What else
this pickup in Virginia's second, did y'all know? So you had a state senator, Jen Kiggins, that they said defeated the Democrat, but the Democrat, Elaine Lura, in Virginia's second congressional district, was on the January 6th commission.
Oh, so they knocked off.
That's interesting.
Oh.
Because a lot of the ones on the commission did not run, right?
Yeah.
Right.
They knew they were not going to win. And then, of course, Liz Cheney's downfall and all this other stuff. So that's interesting. That could be a key issue there in that race.
Yeah. Molly Hemingway tweeted a few minutes ago that the Luria is the fourth member of the J6 committee not returning to Congress.
Wow.
Kinzinger didn't run. Cheney was defeated. And Stephanie Murphy of Florida, once considered a rising star, declined to even run.
Does anybody know if Dan Crenshaw is getting reelected?
I'm sure he is. Yeah.
That's a shame. That's one of those ones where I might vote for the Democrat.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll see. I'd love to know what's going on with the Vance race. Anything going up there, Tom?
I don't have anything else than what I said before.
It's not looking too good for Blake Masters here in Arizona, which surprises me.
Yeah. Supposedly, Kelly's running hotter than they thought. That's such a mess down there. I just can't imagine the chaos down there. But they still got people standing in line. Even though a judge said the polls would close, once you're in line, you're in line. You're allowed to vote. So we'll have to see what happens there as the night goes on with that. So I guess Senate race leaning towards Johnson. So I guess I have to wait on those guys too.
Something interesting going on with Boebert in Colorado. She's down right now.
Yeah.
I know. I imagine she'd be really targeted. Yeah, Carrie Lake, another election run by clowns, and we're not going to take it anymore. And she went on from there. But
here's good news. Sean Patrick Maloney, the candidate in New York who told people to eat Chef Boyardee if they can't afford gas, looks like he's way behind. He's 9 points behind. So that's great.
That would be interesting. Nothing against Chef Boyardee, but that was actually a really rather callous thing he said the other day.
Mark, yes.
Yeah, so
someone who grew up being fed Chef Boyardee, I can tell you it's not a pretty picture to grow up eating that for dinner. We weren't poor. My mother was just Irish and lazy.
Okay. So, yeah, Eric Schmidt projected to win the Senate. We're good there.
Well,
that is a very
Michigan
interesting tactic to take with the battling of inflation, just telling people, well, carpool or eat Chef Boyardee or
eat cake.
Yeah, eat cake.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like if your policies put people in that position, that's especially callous. Especially callous.
Yeah.
It's one thing if things happen.
I cannot wait until Michigan gets called for governor, especially if Tudor Dixon wins. Aside from the fact that I grew up in Michigan, even if it weren't for that, that is the one state that I would most love to see flip in that position.
Yeah.
I just saw some good news. Paul Gozer won re-election easily, one of my favorite people in Congress.
Okay. How Gozer for you? Okay. Well, here we are. It's 10:30, and like I said, we still got some stuff coming in. So do we want to come on back here and at the top of the hour? Take a few minutes.
Sure.
Sure.
Are you able, Gail?
Yeah.
All right, Tom.
We can do that.
And to make everybody feel better about Lauren Boebert, New York Times is projecting that she will win still. So even though the vote totals are low right now, there's definitely some counties or some areas that she's hot on that haven't come in yet.
All right,
Okay.
good.
Okay.
All right, so I'll talk to you guys in 20 minutes.
Talk to you guys in 20 minutes.
All right.
And
See ya.
whoever's on, come see us in 20 minutes. Bye. Okay. How do I go? Leave. Do I leave? I leave.